So we're gonna plan our flight from Pitt Meadows, to Kelowna. And we're gonna make sure, of course, we got the right aircraft, and it's IFR, Pitt Meadows, and we're gonna select runway 26 left and depart direct to Kelowna, and we're gonna arrive via Pigloo for 16. It's not just either or, it's gotta be 16, right? And the approach, make sure we've got the ILS 16 selected. Okay, and then of course we get all these extra waypoints that we don't need, so we know between Pitt Meadows and Pigloo we don't need any of these waypoints, so we'll just left click on them, remove, Pigloo is good. Now if we zoom in, oh no, the erroneous one that usually sets here is not there. We'll double check now our time of day. This is good, clear skies, we can go back on that. And basically we're ready to go. And if we zoom in again, you can see that we have our correct approach here. Anybody who's wondering why I'm uploading it this way, I'm actually uploading this flight for someone I know, and so that they can fly this when I'm not there and have all the correct setup, and of course the actual numbers and when and where for the flight to get onto the approach for Kelowna. If you are watching this and I don't know you, I'm running a 3080 with a 4790K, 32 gigs of DDR 2400 megahertz RAM. So yes, the 3080 is just fine with a 4790K. Okay, so ready to fly.
IFR to Kelowna.
And we want 12,000 feet, so we can minimize that. We'll left click our VFR map and then scroll back so we can get our flight, the gist of our flight put in there, and we can see it at a glance. Minimize and drag it over and put it in the far right screen. Okay, right clicking, shifting our camera up to the roof, panel lights up to the top of the swoosh, 2 clicks on the flood, and that's so we have not such a dark cockpit during the flight, and various shading from where the sun is and such and so forth. Okay, so this is our autopilot panel. We'll begin from right to left. We'll work it. Always indent your altitude to synchronize your altitude to your current location. If you're at Denver, where you're almost 6,000 feet in the air, this starts at 0. If they want you at 20,000, that's a full 20,000 you got to scroll. Whereas if you indent it and you're starting at 6,000, you got less to scroll. That's the purpose of the indent of the altitude. Yes, we know we have the altimeter here, but that still won't get rid of that extra 7,000 feet you have to scroll. So 12,000 is where we're headed with the preset or programming of the autopilot, if you prefer. We will indent our heading because look where the heading bug is. We want it to be facing with the aircraft, just because, and certainly on takeoff, because we're going to use runway heading initially. When we engage the autopilot, we'll switch to en route later on after takeoff. Okay, so we will activate the heading bug for this portion of the use of the autopilot. Now, flight managed speed or manual speed. We're going to program our speed, so we'll switch that to manual. We'll pre-program our rate of ascent with the VSI. Okay, here's where you're looking for this pre-program, and we'll scroll this wheel down to increase the number. Seems backwards, but when you think about, you pull back on the yoke to increase, it makes sense. 3,200 is what we want there. Okay, so 3,200. For whatever reason, the speed starts, it's a bit of a bug at 144, and we don't want that. So it's a bit of a bug. It should be at 0, but anyways, we want 320. I actually specifically go 318, which is near the top of our rated speed for this aircraft. Okay, so everything is set up for the autopilot. All we need to do now is to release the brake and slight nose down pressure, just slight, to keep the traction on the nose gear, help us steer down the runway and maintain the center line. Away we go. Oh, and I'll hold the brake here just momentarily, let the engine spool right up, and away we go. Slight nose pressure, rudder, looking for 140 to rotate. Nose coming up, gear coming up, autopilot engaged, gently let go of the yoke, stick, whatever the case may be, auto throttle engaged, exterior view, recapture, see where we're coming from here, interior view,
125.905
flap coming
for
up,
Cessna Uniform Sierra Hotel.
4250.
Vancouver Center
And we'll
Cessna
switch
Romeo
to
Uniform
navigate.
Sierra
Now we're no
Hotel
longer
is
going to
at
follow runway heading. We're
1,300
going
feet,
to
climbing 12,000
tell the
feet.
autopilot to
Cessna Romeo Uniform
go on
Sierra
route.
Hotel, Vancouver Center,
And
continue
we'll
as
be
planned.
spinning around,
Altimeter 29.902.
engage, or to acquire our track over the ground that's pre-programmed with our IFR flight, which is this white line. So the aircraft is going to come around. It went right through the auto throttle, which is a bit of a bug. Ever since Microsoft decided that auto throttle would not work being set on the ground, it's supposed to engage, I think, 400 or 600 feet above ground level. It doesn't do it. I wait till after 600 to engage it, and no, it does. Sometimes it'll capture. Most times it just sails right through it, and you have to hit it again. So they need to deal with that. Just another bug. Okay, so we're coming around. We can have a look here on the VFR map here. Zoom that in a little bit if you like. You're going to come around. We're going to rejoin our flight plan route over the ground, this airway. I'm recording in 4K, so I'm taking a bit of hit on the frame rate by about 8 frames. I'm not only just recording in 4K, I'm recording in a very high maximum bit rate at 4K. YouTube likes to compress things so much. I think a 15-20 minute upload's over 30 gigabytes. So by the time they apply their compression, it's not squished to nothing, and the picture quality really goes down. So I try to give them as much as I can, maintain the picture quality. Alright, coming around, everything looks good. If you can hear a bit of an echo, there's a bit of a bug with the shadow play too. And my microphone, I don't understand why it's suddenly doing this. I have to be able to hear my voice coming back through the headset or the speakers for it to record the audio off my mic. It's something weird going on there. Anyways, it produces a bit of an echo, so I try to keep it turned down so you'll hear me engage and disengage my mic. Okay, as we come around to engage the flight path, I will activate the sim rate. Okay, so I'm going to activate the sim rate 3, pushes forward to expedite this straight line to the beginning of the approach, which is just this side of Pitt.
Cessna Uniform Sierra Hotel, contact Vancouver Center on 135.0.
135.0 Cessna Uniform Sierra Hotel. Vancouver Center, Cessna Romeo Uniform Sierra Hotel, 12,000 feet.
Cessna Romeo Uniform Sierra Hotel, Vancouver Center, continue as planned. Altimeter 29.902.
Okay, and right about here we'll bring the sim rate back to 2.
Cessna Uniform Sierra Hotel, contact Vancouver Center on 133.5.
One more will be back to normal speed.
133.5 for
Just get a
Cessna
little
Uniform
closer in
Sierra
before I
Hotel.
release it. Right about
Vancouver Center, Cessna Romeo Uniform Sierra Hotel,
now, we're
12,000 feet.
anticipating a 210 knot speed limit.
Cessna
So
Romeo
I'm going to bring it
Uniform
back to
Sierra Hotel,
250.
Vancouver Center, continue as planned.
The ATC will give us the clearance to descend below 210 knots. Now I know that this clearance is going to be for 8,300 feet. If you're a regular line pilot, you'll know your descents that they give you. You can preload it in the autopilot, which I'll now do. Well, it will seem that since the new update here on November 24th, I've done this run 3 times now. Only once did it actually ask me to descend just before pig loop. I don't know if it's a bug or something, but anyways, I'm going to drop the speed to 200, which is really what you want to be along this leg. You're on the approach phase. Oops. And anticipate take one step flat and anticipate the call to descent. We're at 12,000 feet. We should be at 83, headed for 62 by here.
Cessna Uniform Sierra Hotel, you are 15 miles west. Descend and maintain 8,300 feet. Keep speed below 210 knots. Expect ILS Zulu runway 16 approach via Dabo transition. Clear to Dabo.
Yeah, a little late on that descent, but whatever. Maybe they just changed it or
Descend
updated
and
it.
maintain 8,300 feet. Keep speed below 210 knots. Expect ILS Zulu runway
So we've
16
now
approach
engaged
via Dabo
our
transition.
preset
Clear to Dabo
8300
Cessna
by
Uniform
pressing
Sierra Hotel.
the flight level change mode. Zoom in our Garmin screen here a little bit. Our accuracy of knowing where we're at. We'll head for 180 right here, somewhere in this turn or just prior to it. Fly this at 180 to just about the next turn, 160, second notch of flaps, and arm the approach right away, which is right there. That'll capture the localizer and the glide path for the ILS 16 approach.
Cessna Uniform Sierra Hotel descend and maintain 4,200 feet. Descend and maintain 4,200 feet. Cessna Uniform Sierra Hotel.
Okay, so we're making the turn down to 4,200 feet, and I reduce speed to 180. Now, it would seem a little bit tight in here, and we're still dropping, and we haven't reduced our speed, so I'm going to take this opportunity to use the speed brake up to about 30% is fine.
Cessna Uniform Uniform Sierra Hotel. You are 19 miles north of Kelowna. Contact Kelowna Tower on 119.6
Expedite
when
our
inbound on the
descent
approach.
to 4200 and our reduced speed
Tower on
to 180 because I'm going to be
119.6
grabbing
Cessna
160
Uniform
right away.
Sierra
And we're still
Hotel.
just doing just under 200 here.
Kelowna Tower Cessna Romeo Uniform Sierra Hotel 19 miles north inbound ILS Zulu
Don't
runway
forget to
16
take off
approach.
the speed brake.
Cessna Romeo Uniform Sierra Hotel Kelowna Tower. Cleared ILS Zulu runway 16 approach. Altimeter 29er
Reduce to
decimal 9er 2
160
and 2
here.
by 3 and 3.
Oops. Even though we're still way up there, because the speed brake is
Cleared
working
ILS
now.
Zulu runway 16 approach Cessna Uniform
I'll
Sierra
also
Hotel.
take the second notch of flap. And I'll engage the approach. Okay, we're looking good. We're almost down to 160 with the flap, so I can release the speed brake. And we can see the localizer is alive. We're engaged. The needle turned from red to green. So we have that, and we can see the glide path here is well above us. So we're going to fly into the glide path, and then the nose will dip down to follow it. So basically we're going to engage flying into the glide path, which is still above us, and we'll meet it at 4,200 feet. The nose will tip down, and we'll be on the glide path down to the button of the runway, which you can see is right there. Not sure what my mic is picking up. I never had this problem with this before. I've done a lot of uploads. Never had a problem with my microphone. Just something in the new Windows 10 updates. I'm guessing something is messing with the way the microphone works. I'll figure it out eventually here. But I didn't have time today to do this upload. Okay, we're still waiting on the glide path to come alive. Usually just over this ridge, you'll start to see the glide path coming down to meet us. Angle of attack is a little bit high. We're a little nose high, so I will engage the last step of flap there. We're still on the auto throttle, so the engines will automatically spool up to provide the extra power versus the drag of the third stage of flap. Definitely missing 8 or 9 frames here right now because of the shadow play. Don't notice it so much in 1080. Try 4K with 150 bits per second or whatever it is, 150 megabit record rate, your bit rate. Okay, so we're about to intercept the glide path. That's when we'll take the gear. Gear coming down. And there goes the nose. So we'll wait for the speed to restabilize on the glide path at 160. Then we'll release the auto throttle, and we'll use the pitch of the engines as the telltale as to where to manually set your throttle to have the same power we have right now. Okay, so here goes the auto throttle. Use the pitch of the engines to recapture the amount of power we need to hold 160. If it's slightly dropping, that's fine. Ideally, we're at about 155 as we get in closer. So it's slowly dropping, that's fine.
Cessna Uniform Sierra Hotel cleared to land runway 16. Wind 253 at tree.
Cleared to land runway
Just
16
above the
Cessna
runway,
Uniform
we're going to
Sierra
disconnect
Hotel.
the autopilot and reduce power as we flare to touchdown. Nicely on the glide path. The black pointer, where it points right there dictates center. So we're perfectly on it. Perfectly on the localizer. Looking magical. I do not promise not to bounce. Things are still solidifying here in the control functions for the flight simulator. It is a work in progress. It seems to change every 2 weeks as to how you're flaring. So you're constantly relearning it, it seems. Perfectly on the glide path, perfectly on the localizer, speed looks good. We're waiting on disconnecting the autopilot. And again, that's just above the runway, so we'll disconnect the autopilot. We'll cut our power in half right away, reassess, can we just take the power right off, do we need to maintain it based on where we are in relation to the button. Okay, power coming back by a good half, 3/4 of the way, disconnecting the autopilot, power right off, and I'll gently just try and flare it. A bit of a bounce there. Brakes on, flaps coming up. Look at that. Right down center line. Bring her to a stop.
Cessna Uniform Sierra Hotel exit runway when able.
Yeah, we'll just go so far as to exit. That wasn't a bad landing. If you ever did your flight training, they'll tell you a landing is a controlled crash.
Cessna Uniform Sierra Hotel
Okay.
contact ground on 121.7.
That's all she wrote.
121.7 for Cessna